Airports can be difficult places for many people. This is particularly true for autistic people who can find them frightening and overwhelming.
I just end up having so much internal panic. I freeze or I try to run away.
I'm absolutely broken. I have nothing left to give.
There is support at airports for autistic passengers, but it's hard to piece together what is available, as we found out.
You need to go to the special assistance.
Yeah.
That's when they will then assist you with airport assistance.
We investigate what barriers neurodivergent passengers face at airports and what the aviation industry could do to make travel more accessible.
Autism and airports.
Autism is a lifelong condition. It affects adults as much as children, and people don't grow out of it. There are at least 700,000 autistic people in the UK. While every autistic person is unique, there are some common challenges. One is how people process sensory information. It can be difficult for autistic people to screen out sensory input like noise, lights or smells. It all comes in at the same intensity and can feel painful and overwhelming.
I start focusing on everything around me, every little sound. Everything kind of gets too much and I can't really focus on anything anyone's saying to me.
Another common feature is anxiety about the unknown and the need for predictability in order to feel safe.
Yeah, it's very important for me to know how things will go in advance, and I like to plan things out and know in my head how things are going to go, because the unknown makes everything more scary, because then you have to improvise, and especially like improvise social interactions.
When someone gets overloaded with sensory information or anxiety about what's going to happen, it can trigger a fight or flight response or lead to a meltdown. We're not talking about tantrum. It's an involuntary reaction to becoming dysregulated, or in other words, losing control. One autistic passenger described it as like the bottom of your car falling out on a motorway. You have to screech to a halt, but what if there's no safe space to stop?
So the last time I was at an airport, I felt really overwhelmed. I might be trying to contain myself and trying to calm myself down, but then it builds up to a point where I can't do that anymore. And the shutdown can sometimes mean that I can't communicate how I feel.
This behaviour can be misinterpreted as a threat in a high security environment like an airport. As a result, many neurodivergent people will mask, suppressing anything about themselves that other people would see as unusual. This is to avoid attention and to keep themselves safe, but it can be exhausting.
The impact for me at the end of a journey is that I'm absolutely broken. I have nothing left to give. My social battery is at zero, and more likely than anything else, I just need to sleep. It's overwhelming.
Autistic passengers take us through the airport journey to point out the triggers.
From the moment I walk into an airport, the first thing that hits me is the amount of people.
I do find the bright lights and the loud noises and the busy crowds really overwhelming.
If you see something that doesn't look right, speak to staff or the police.
I'm not very good with the tannoy announcements because I hear everything at the same level. Often with a tannoy announcement, I only realise it's happening by the time it's halfway through. And then there's the panic, did it apply to me? Did it not apply to me? Then there's the check-in process. Is it checking at a machine, which I prefer because then I don't have to speak to anybody. But the machine never quite works the way the instructions on the screen suggest. And even if you fly out and back with the same airline and check in at a machine at each end, the machine is always subtly different. It never asks the same things in the same order, never expects the same thing of you.
Security is often the biggest challenge for autistic travellers. This is because it is so far removed from normal behaviour, and it can be very unpredictable. Even the UK regulator, the Civil Aviation Authority, acknowledges that this is a problem.
We think security is such an issue when it comes to accessibility, and very distinct from any other sector. There's pretty much no other sector that have something quite as stressful as going through airport security, and we think it's very important.
Often, the airport staff have to give the impression of security. Passengers need to be reassured that it's being applied. And often the way to do that is to just very mildly bully people. There's this assumption that you are trying to do something bad. Not that everyone needs to be checked just because that's safe, but that you individually are the bad person. So there's lots of barking and shouting, and there are instructions like, take it out of the bag, get it out of the bag, laptops out of bags, when just a simple, obvious sign that said, please remove laptops from bags, would just make that whole thing so much easier.
I end up at security, and at that point, I suddenly come across as probably the most guilty person in the world, because I'm sat there thinking, oh my goodness, I need to be a perfect human being here. I need to mask. What does a perfect human being going through security look like?
We asked passengers to message us with their experiences.
Many times when I've been struggling to load the tray at security, the guards have barked at my parents to stop helping me and move away. I feel lightheaded and can pass out when I'm separated from that support and my belongings.
On some flights, passengers are randomly selected for a second search at the gate. This can be especially distressing for autistic people because there is no logical reason for it, and it's another challenge that can't be predicted.
When someone is selected for screening, it's extremely rare that it's done by a human being. We have equipment based on a number of factors. We'll randomly select people for screening, or people will be selected for screening because the equipment has alarmed.
It makes me feel violated being touched by a stranger for no other reason than a random machine said so. I don't understand why I'm being punished when I've followed all the rules. It causes me physical pain, which lasts beyond the search. To mitigate this, I'll wear different clothes or even fly from a different airport if the scanner went off last time.
Security is a challenge all over the world, including the United States, where it is carried out by the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA. We talked to Antonio Ferrara, aviation professional and founder of campaign group Aviators for Autism.
In the US, when you're going in there, it's shoes off, everybody listening, and it's almost like you're in boot camp. I think it comes down to the TSA, their training, their culture, and the way they go about things.
That can come as a shock to passengers travelling from the UK.
At one US airport in Florida, there is no assistance available. At security, I went to the body scanner and the guard very abruptly said I'd been selected for an invasive groin search, despite me saying that it would be a form of sexual assault as it would be anywhere else in society. I was fisted in front of the entire airport very invasively. The security guy had no understanding of autism or any disabilities. At this point, I was so distressed that I collapsed and blacked out on the ground. Nobody wanted to even help me. They just were happy to let me lie there. This has affected me for months now and has kept me awake at night.
After security, the ordeal isn't over.
The worst part of all, really, for me, that awful duty-free part, that bombarding of perfume and chocolate and alcohol, none of which interests me. That weaving path through all those horrible, noisy shops.
Just the amount of smells that you get in there is overwhelming. There are certain brands of cosmetic shops that I actually can't walk past, for example, because I'm extremely sensitive to smell.
It can be even more disorientating arriving in an unfamiliar airport.
I find it quite confusing, especially at European airports, working out which lane I need to go into to find the relevant place to go get my passport stamped or go through the machine. It's quite intimidating. Depending on the country, they might actually have a gun at their side as well. They tend to sit quite high, so they're quite dominating as well. And an instruction like, look in the camera, that just doesn't work. Where's the camera? Why am I looking in the camera? What is it you want me to do? Stand back, feet on the markings. What markings?
I was waiting behind my autistic son to make sure he got through the e-gates okay, but staff ordered me through. When his passport wouldn't open the gates, he panicked and sat on the floor crying. Staff just assumed we'd be okay because he's an adult and autism is invisible.
Throughout the airport journey, communicating with staff can be confusing and stressful.
I'm coming into the US. It'd been a long flight with the border protection guy. And he said to me, reason for travel. And the only, as far as I could see, proper response to reason for travel is to get here. He, obviously thinking I was trying to be a bit clever, kind of bellowed, reason for travel. And I said, to get here. So then he said slowly and shouting, reason for travel. To get here. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. I don't know what answer you're driving for. And he said, why are you here in the US? And I said, oh, I'm visiting a trade show. And he said, why didn't you say that? You never asked.
People can be left feeling self-conscious or traumatised for weeks afterwards, thinking about what they might have done wrong at the airport.
It's difficult to just, grit your teeth and push through it, because these things can affect us for weeks after. The whole idea is that airports are your way to get out there and have amazing experiences. But how are you able to have these experiences if you're just so worn out and burnt out from one airport experience?
This is putting a lot of people off travelling.
80+% of families with an individual on the spectrum don't plan a family vacation, whether they're worried about a drive, but usually it's probably air travel. So there's a real need and support for the community within my industry. 1 in 36 kids, they say nowadays, are diagnosed. That's your client base. You need to start accommodating that.
Airports are legally obliged to offer assistance to those referred to as passengers with reduced mobility, or PRMs. This includes autistic passengers. But how they assist them and to what extent is left up to each airport to decide. We spoke to 3 UK airports ranked as very good for accessibility, Teesside, Newcastle and Glasgow, about what they offer.
We've loads of accommodations we make, and the easiest thing is to ask a passenger what assistance they require, because 9 times out of 10 we'll end up tailoring that for the individual. One of the things we try and do is pre-visits, so if someone's never travelled before or find it may be difficult travelling through the airport, we can offer a visit on a quieter day and a quieter period, really take them through the entire journey, for example.
To help an autistic person have the best possible journey through the airport, the most important thing is for them to go to the assistance desk, and we can put in place the assistance that that particular person needs. So that might involve having an escort if that's required for part or all of their journey. We've got a sensory area, and we have a dedicated assistance gate.
All of our staff have assistance awareness training, which covers the likes of a hidden disability lanyard scheme. So we do have a number of methods for passengers with hidden disabilities to avoid certain high pressure areas, for example duty free, the hustle and bustle of a security queue. Such a simple case of putting something on the website. It's an entire 3D map of the terminal, so a passenger from the comfort of their own home can look on our website and they'll see an entire map of our terminal. It covers all aspects, including the arrivals area, the departures lounge, all the way through security. And the whole ethos behind that is to give a passenger an indication of what it's going to be like on the day.
Airports are ranked on how accessible they are by UK regulator, the Civil Aviation Authority.
Our main vehicle for ensuring the regulation is met is through what we call an airport accessibility framework, where each year we assess UK airports and give them a rating. We give them very good, good, needs improvement or poor.
The rating is based on how timely their assistance is, as well as customer satisfaction surveys. They also do ad hoc inspections of airports.
Back in 2016, we published a report and some guidance on how to support people with hidden disabilities, and that included asking airports to have things such as quiet rooms, separate security lanes, which we found was important, routes that bypassed maybe the busy and difficult areas of an airport experience. And in the inspections, we assess airports against that guidance as well.
When assisted travel works, it works really well.
We just recently flew from Newcastle Airport, and wow, they were 10 out of 10. We were stressed about going through duty free. They didn't question us, they just took us through a different door which avoided the duty-free area altogether. They then showed us to an unused gate where we had free rein to walk around, stim, and be away from the hustle and bustle. We were also asked if we would like to board first or last.
The best experience I ever had was at Pittsburgh in the US. After I emailed the airport in advance, they arranged for a staff member to meet me off the plane and escort me through customs. On the way home, they took me straight to the front of the security queue. Officers were informed in advance and took me to a quiet area.
The problem is that every single UK airport is different in what they offer and how they interpret the regulator's guidance.
I have used the service, so for medical reasons I occasionally will have to use it, but I've had mixed experiences at various airports. There's no two airport you can say it's exactly the same, good or bad.
I've travelled lots, been very fortunate in that respect. Lots of airports all over the world, so although they all set out to achieve the same thing, they all do it in a slightly different way.
It's no surprise that airports are also different when you look at who owns them. Since the 1980s, many UK airports have been taken over by private owners, from French and Spanish operators to pension funds from Canada, Australia and China. Also, many airports contract out their services to big commercial providers. This includes their PRM services that provide assistance to disabled passengers. It's also about how individual airports interpret the regulator's rules.
It can be challenging for passengers coming through who want to have a set procedure and to know that no matter what airport they go to, it's going to be the same. However, the CAA guidance can be fairly broad to allow for different interpretation across airports. They are getting a lot better, so hopefully that is going to give us more direction and there will be more consistency across airports.
The Civil Aviation Authority wishes it had more power to make sure airports provided a consistent standard of service.
In terms of the powers we have to enforce the rules, we're in public record to say we would like our powers improved. Generally, at the moment, we use what we call reputational levers to bring about change. We don't have the powers to fine, which is different to many other regulators across Europe and also across the world.
In practice, this means that you are faced with different levels of support at different airports. Some airports recognise the sunflower lanyard for hidden disabilities. Some have their own lanyards, and some have so-called autism passports. Some airports offer a special assistance lane or free use of fast track through security. Others don't. Some airports have sensory rooms. Others don't. Some sensory rooms have to be booked. Some are open to anyone. And some are restricted to people being escorted through the airport. Some airports have quiet routes, bypassing duty-free. Many don't. And this is before you even think about your destination airport, where standards can be very different.
Specifically in the US, because that's what I can speak to, everybody's in a rush, so it's a crazy environment. And I think the ability for the infrastructure, meaning the employees within the airport, to identify individuals, the needs, and how to accommodate them is lacking, wouldn't be the word. I feel like it's non-existent.
Airports abroad don't care what your needs are. We've never been given priority boarding. They still have to take the bus over with all other passengers, which leaves my son distressed and volatile. It seems in Europe that if you're not in a wheelchair, then you're not disabled and don't matter.
We work as much as we can with international bodies and international governments and international regulators such as ourselves to try to improve the experience for all. And we do recognise that there's no point in being good out of the UK if your inbound flight isn't so good, because that's still going to put you off travelling.
Autistic passengers need clarity about what's going to happen. We know that. But when every airport is different, how do people find out what help they can get and how they get it? Many officials say the help is there. All people need to do is ask.
If the carers reached out and said to someone, I need help or I need assistance, it's always available.
But this is a huge problem. Just ask who. Ask them what. Why would you ask to use a quiet route bypassing duty free, for example, if you had no idea such a thing existed? And for people who are unable to speak on the phone or anxious about talking to strangers, it is impossible to just ask.
I know I'll freeze up because I'm too scared to do anything or to ask for help.
I would end up with so much anxiety just on the idea of how to ask for these things, because the number of people that I'll say to someone that I'm ADHD and they'll go, "You don't look autistic." What do you expect me to be doing here? It's a really difficult conversation to start having.
Passengers tell us that even when they try to ask, they don't always get anywhere.
We tried to book assistance with an airline to travel from Houston to Manchester, and they said it wasn't necessary and to just ask on the day. We got in touch with American security assistant TSA Cares, who emailed back saying you don't need our help, just ask on the day. We then asked on the day at the airport and the person wouldn't answer us, he just shrugged his shoulders and walked off.
We think it's unfair to make neurodivergent people jump through hoops to piece together what help is available. Especially when a survey found that 2/3 of all people are not even aware that assisted travel exists, let alone what it involves.
We had a family holiday to Greece last summer with our 5-year-old son. We didn't request special assistance and I didn't know it was available. But also, as my son does not have a diagnosis yet, I wasn't sure if we would be eligible. It would be good if they made the information more freely available.
Plus, passengers need to know in advance what their airport journey will look like. Otherwise, they might not have the confidence even to try. So many people rely on airport websites. But when we looked at those sites, we found it difficult to work out exactly what was on offer. And we're not the only ones.
Personally, I've never needed to request special assistance, but it's something that I have written about. I've written about that requirement, so I've looked at airport websites with the idea of finding which ones offered it and who I could contact to learn about how they do it. It's kind of hard to find that offer on a lot of airport websites. It's buried under odd headings, odd drop downs. And then when you get to the assistance, there does tend to be a focus on people with mobility issues. And that's great, but that doesn't assist everyone who might need some assistance, especially people like me who would really, really like to look at something that told them what to expect when they got there. I contacted, I think, 4 or 5 UK airports and a couple of US airports, and I was trying to write this piece about accessibility. None of them responded.
It doesn't help that some airport websites are clearly targeting families with autistic children rather than autistic adults using the airport to travel for their jobs, for medical reasons or on holiday.
Always stop and look both ways before crossing the road. Stay close to the adult.
Attention all passengers. Airlines are responsible for putting your assisted travel in place with your airport.
It seems logical that your airline would be your best bet for information. After all, you have to book assisted travel via your airline, which then arranges for it to be in place at each airport along the way.
If passengers need any sort of assistance, whether it's for physical needs or hidden disabilities, they should book this with their airline at least 36 hours before they travel. That will ensure that they get the assistance for all of their journey on the aircraft, their destination airport and their journey back as well.
So you'd expect the airlines at least to be able to explain what assistance is on offer and how it works. We asked airlines to explain their system to us, but none wanted to be interviewed for the film. So we rang their special assistance teams asking for information as a neurodivergent passenger.
Almost there. Let's get you connected to our TUI team. Thank you for calling Ryanair.
Welcome to Emirates. How may I assist you?
These are extracts from the calls. We are not identifying the staff involved, but wanted to highlight what information they had at their disposal and what they knew about autistic passengers' needs. We found it really difficult to make sense of what assisted travel meant or what was on offer at airports because the information we were given was so vague.
I'm interested in booking a flight from Teesside, and I just wondered what help would be available for me.
Once you have made the booking, we will add you assistance called DPNS, cognitive or non-visible disability. So you have a free seat, and you also board among the first people on board.
You need to go to the special assistance.
Yeah.
That's when they will then assist you with airport assistance.
Yeah.
On our end, we add assistance that you will require, then they will provide you with that assistance.
But what is that assistance? What do they,
Depending on what assistance you require, ma'am. Remember, we have special assistance. We also have normal people that board, right?
Autistic passengers sometimes complain that assistance is very wheelchair focused, even if they don't have mobility issues. We found the same thing when talking to some of the airlines.
I have trouble walking through duty free because of the smells and the lights. Do you know if there's ways I can avoid that, or do you know any other help that's available?
In these cases, we offer a wheelchair or someone to give you a scooter to move around. If you need to do the shopping, or if you need to walk around the airport, we can add it for you on the booking so that you can have assistance throughout the airport.
It's not my legs that's the problem, it's the smells and the lights and things in duty free. Is there any way of avoiding it?
Oh no, unfortunately we don't have, for the smell, unfortunately we suggest you avoid going through those areas.
We've got some customers that say just need a bit of help sort of with the distance through the airport. We go right up to customers that are physically confined to wheelchairs and obviously need to be lifted on and off seats. So as I said, it all depends on the individual there.
Most surprising was that many special assistance teams appeared to have little information about what help was available at the airports they flew to.
Just checking in for Glasgow, so there's no quiet and quick route through. Do you have to go through the security lane as normal, and do you have to walk through duty free?
I will check that. Can I please put you on hold? I will check this with my team.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much for holding the line. So I checked, and in Glasgow Airport you would also get the assistance. We cannot guarantee it would be quiet. There is dedicated areas, but not as in Dubai.
Can I avoid the E-gates in Glasgow?
I'm not sure. Let me double check if they do have that.
We have a dedicated lane for those with hidden disabilities, and they will be processed differently with the border agent.
In Glasgow Airport, I do not have any information about the E-gates.
How would an autistic passenger make sense of any of this? How would it help them to plan a journey and know exactly what was going to happen? It's a big problem. Airlines are central to the whole system of putting assistance in place, yet they seem disconnected from it. We have seen some great support at airports, but many airlines appear to be unaware of it and certainly aren't telling their neurodivergent passengers about it. We contacted EasyJet, Ryanair, TUI and Emirates for their response to our calls. Only EasyJet replied.
We can see the agent was genuinely doing their best to help, but we are sorry if the incorrect advice was given, and for any inappropriate language used during one call, which could have been handled better. We continually review the information we equip our agents with, and provide them with ongoing and extensive training, including on autism and neurodivergence, and the correct language to ensure that agents are providing appropriate and consistent advice to customers.
Another disconnect is that although you have to book assistance via the airline, Too often, the airlines fail to pass that booking on to the airports, so the passenger arrives and nothing is in place.
There are quite a few occasions where, unfortunately, the notification from the airline doesn't make it through to the airport. What I would advise any passenger is contact our information desk. The number is available on the website. We can confirm the booking, you can confirm your assistance on your booking, and then we can make sure that everything's in place ready for your arrival.
I took my 10-year-old son to Spain to visit family and spoke to Ryanair in advance to book assistance and explain his needs. Newcastle Airport had nothing on their system from Ryanair, but quickly put together wonderful support, including his own security lane. On the way back, the Spanish airport hadn't been notified of the booking either, but staff there wouldn't help us. My son was overwhelmed through the busy Spanish airport. He was lashing out and lying on the floor screaming, and other passengers were filming us. It was horrific. We were told we'd get priority boarding, but at the gate they took wheelchair users through and shut the door in our face. The whole experience was devastating. There is no way we'd attempt to take him on another flight on our own again.
The Civil Aviation Authority plans to tackle some of these problems by publicly ranking airlines for accessibility in the same way they do for airports.
Some airlines were much better than others. Much better information was getting from some airlines to the airports and we want the airlines aren't so good in Zero to invest in their process, invest in their IT equipment. And often it's sort of IT is the biggest issue. It's not as if some airlines seem to have more advanced IT than others.
Way forward.
It's clear that autistic people face huge challenges at airports. It's also clear that airports are aware of much of this and want to support where they can. But much of this good work is lost when passengers can't find clear information in advance. This uncertainty in itself can make air travel inaccessible to autistic people because of the anxiety it causes. So here are 5 simple ways we think the experience could be improved for neurodivergent travellers, and probably everybody else too. Passengers need to have clear, consistent information about what support is on offer on each airport's website. The Civil Aviation Authority could produce a checklist of its recommendations. For example, a separate lane at security or a quiet room. Airports would publish this on their websites with ticks and crosses as appropriate. Airlines would have access to those checklists and would ask their destination airports overseas to provide them too.
If I could go onto the airport's website and see, this is what you'll be required, this is the machine you'll be using, this is how it works, how much easier would that be? Because I could go with all of that in mind.
I love clear communication. That's my number one thing because it just prevents any misunderstandings.
The Sunflower Lanyard for Hidden Disabilities is international in scope and means autistic people can be offered help without having to ask or justify themselves. All airports in the UK and overseas should sign up to the scheme.
I really noticed an example of good practice when I was at Manchester Airport recently. I was wearing my Sunflower Lanyard, which is indicative of somebody needing some extra support. And I definitely noticed that the staff there seemed to respond to that very well. I was given a quieter lane during security. When I went to use the restaurants, I was given a quiet area at the back of the restaurant. And that really stood out to me as a very positive experience.
Systems are all very well, but they stand or fall on the staff that operate them. Autism-led training for all customer-facing staff, including contracted staff, would help ensure more consistency.
The way that I've been received by staff has made the biggest difference to my own travel experience. And I think it would be fantastic to see more airports invest in training for recognising people with hidden disabilities, for recognising people who might need additional support due to neurodiversity.
There is a range of requirement there. You can't just put a label on someone and say they're neurodivergent, they need a quiet space, and that'll be them sorted. Because that isn't the way it works.
Airports are constricted by infrastructure and costs. but there are simple ways to create a calmer, less overwhelming environment.
It doesn't need massive changes in infrastructure. It just needs an understanding that maybe barking at people isn't the best way to get the result that you wanted. Maybe having an array of machines, even in the same airport, that all work slightly differently, isn't going to help people. And when you say, here's a quiet space, it genuinely is somewhere that's quiet. It's not a row of seats behind a pillar in the walkway on the way between the gate and the seating area. That's not what a quiet area is.
I was in Singapore at Changi Airport. One thing I did notice and I thought was a really fantastic idea is that they do have resting areas, which are just quiet areas where they've got recliner style seating for people to actually sit and say have a small nap. The dim lights and everything, it will take away that sensory requirement. That's a really great idea, and we should have more of that in our busier airports.
Airports hold accessibility forums with local disability groups to get their feedback. But why not consult with them in advance of any policy change or building work?
I believe unless you've actually experienced it, you can't fully provide the same amount of helpful advice as someone who's actually experienced it.
Finally, we believe that making airports better places for neurodivergent people would make them better for all.
Autism is like an amplifier of issues. If an autistic person says, oh, that's just too loud, dial it down a bit, and probably every passenger in that terminal will just be a little bit chilled, a little bit more relaxed, because the person with the hypersensitivity went, oh, that's an issue. No one else had realised until it had gone. And then it was like, oh, that's improved everything. So I do feel that airports listening to neurodiverse people and then implementing their suggestions will probably create a better environment for everyone.